Yeah, good afternoon. Myself Pratap. I'm going to discuss the topic servlets, which is a part of the web technologies course. In this topic, we are going to discuss about what is a servlet, what is servlet technology, and the advantage of servlets over CGI. And we'll be discussing about what is CGI technology. We'll be discussing about what is the servlet life cycle and how servlet works, and an example code how to deploy the servlets in a server. So servlet technology. What is servlet technology? Servlet technology is a basically Java technology where we will write the web applications. These web applications are dynamically created, dynamical content, right? So web technologies where it is a server-side program. Server technology is used to create the servlet technology is used to create the web applications. To create the web applications, we use the servlets, and servlets is a Java technology. Based upon this Java technology, we are going to create the server side. We are going to write the server side scripts or the program using Java technology. So Java servlet technology uses Java. Web applications made using servlets are secure, scalable, and robust. So why this technology? Servlets are used for writing the server-side scripts where we are going to deploy these servlet programs in the server. So in order to execute all the servlet programs, we need to have a server where we can execute all the servlet programs. So why we have to write the servlet program? So whenever a user make a request to the server, and the server has to send the responses to the client. So in order to send the response to the client, the servlet script or the servlet program is executed by the server, and it will send a response to the client. So basically it will follow the client server architecture where a client is making a request to the server and the server is sending a response. So it uses the HTTP request and HTTP response methods to make the communication between the client and server. So how it works, if you are going to see, it has a client server architecture. So a client is going to interact at the browser by making a request. So the request is going to be transferred in the form of HTTP request, and it is sent to the server. And the server is going to send the response to the client. So before the server technology, there was another technology named as CGI was there. So CGI is a technology which is used to handle this client request and response. So before servlets, CGI programming was used to create web applications. Here how a CGI program works. User clicks on a link that has URL to a dynamic page instead of a static page. The URL decides which CGI program to execute. Then web server runs on the CGI program in separate OS shell. The shell includes OS environment and the process to execute the code of the CGI program. The CGI response is sent back to the web server, which wraps the response in an HTTP response and send it back to the browser. So if you see this diagram, it is clear that how a CGI technology is used to work, where it is going to act like a client server technology, where a request and response is seen in this diagram. So whenever a user is going to interact at this point as a client, here a request is sent submitting the completed form to the server, and the backend server is going to make a call to the CGI technology, and the CGI is going to execute this request in the separate OS shell and send a response back to the server, and the server here is going to send a response to the client. So here it has a lot of drawbacks. So whenever any request is made, that request is sent to the server, and the server is to initiate a CGI program. So this CGI program is to have execute in a separate OS shell. So total resources utilized by this CGI technologies are more when compared with the other Java servlet technologies. So what it will do, it has to load OS initiated application. So every request, it has to initiate the execution of the OS. So executing the OS and executing the program inside the OS, it is time consuming. So like this, it has many disadvantages where CGI technology is taking more. It has lot of disadvantages when compared with the serverlets. So this is the general scenario how a CGI program is going to interact with the client, how this is going to serve a client by executing the server side program in a separate OS part and sending a response to the server, and server is sending a response to the client. So this has many disadvantages. So there are many disadvantages like high response time because of CGI program executes in their own shell, because every time it has to execute or run the OS, and in the OS it has to run all the environments that are necessary for the completion or execution of the program. Then it is not scalable. So if you want to do any changes or any modification or to add any extra thing, that is not scalable. Again, everything has to be loaded and executed. That is another drawback. CGI programs are not always secure or object oriented. So it does not support the object oriented concept and always not secure. And it is platform dependent. It is totally platform dependent in the sense every time it is going to load the OS part. So every time it is loading OS, and the application that is developed that has to be executed on the OS, it is going to take the time. So it is totally OS dependent. So it is a platform dependent technology. Because of this disadvantages, developers started looking for a better CGI solutions, and then Sun Microsystem developed a servlet as a solution over the traditional CGI technology. In order to overcome all these drawbacks, servlets are developed, and servlet has all the advantages over the CGI technology. So CGI has this many disadvantages. These disadvantages are overcome by the servlet technology. So servlet is going to overcome all this. Because servlets are the Java technology, we know Java is a platform independent, where we are going to write, where it is executed on any operating system irrespective of the what type of operating system it is. So it is a platform independent. So write once, execute anywhere. So that policy is followed by the servlets. So advantages of servlets, we could see here, it takes the less time. The response time is very less because each request run in a separate thread, and servlets are scalable, and servlets are robust and object oriented, which supports object oriented concept, and servlets are platform independent. So it executes on any operating system, because all the Java code is going to be converted into the .class files, and if .class files are there, it can execute on any operating system. So let us see how this servlet is going to work. So here a servlet is nothing but a server-side program. So whenever a client, just consider a scenario where a browser is there in a system where a client is going to interact through the system, and he is going to fill or make some request through the browser. So a client interacts at the browser level one application, and that request is going to be sent to the server. Suppose this is a client part and this is a server, right? So whenever the client is going to make a request from the browser, that request is going to be handled by the HTTP request method, and it is sent to the server. And the server is going to send the response by using the HTTP response method to the client. So while the server is going to accept the request, it is going to check whether if there are any requests are there in order to access the database. If database requests are there, it is going to access the databases. So the databases are going to be accessed by using the SQL queries in the form of SQL queries. The server is going to interact with the databases because the database is going to understand only the SQL. So SQL queries are executed on the databases, and it is going to collect the response from the database, and that responses are sent back to the client or the user in the form of HTTP response to the client. So this server contains all the servlets which are stored in the servlet container. There is a servlet container which is used to maintain all the servlet programs. So whenever the servlet programs are requested, that particular servlet program is going to be executed. That execution part takes in the web server, and the web server is going to send the response to the client. So in order to better understand this, let us see the method of working. So we could see it has the servlet lifecycle in order to tell how a servlet is going to work. So initially, when a client make a request, when a client make a request, it will go to the server. Now the server has all the servlets, and the servlets are stored inside the servlet container. So whenever it is going to execute a particular servlet, so it has to go through the servlet lifecycle. So servlet lifecycle has different methods that has to be executed. So the main methods where a servlet has is like call init method, calling the service method, and call destroy method. So if there are more than one servlets are there, so if there are more than one servlets, then it has to handle all the methods. So how do it handles all the methods? Because a container not only contains a single servlet, it can contain servlet 1, it can contain servlet 2, it can contain servlet 3. So like that, it can has any number of servlets. So in order to execute a particular servlet, so as per the request that is coming to the server has to choose which servlet it has to execute. So particular servlet, if suppose first servlet has to be executed, so if this servlet, there is a request for the servlet 1, so this particular servlet is going to be executed. So while execution of this first servlet, what it will do, it has to follow the life cycle of servlet. The life cycle of servlet, what does it contain? Means it contains this steps where it has to load the servlet class. So this is the first thing it does, that it has to load the servlet class. So servlet class is nothing but whatever the Java servlet program, whatever we are written, servlet program, whatever is written, it's a Java program. Now this Java program need to be converted into the .class file. So it is going to load the servlet class. So this .class file has to be loaded. This .class file has to be loaded in the first step. So then in the second step, what it will do means it creates a servlet instance. For the first servlet, it is going to create a servlet instance. So container creates an instance of the servlet, because if a first request is coming for the same servlet, so for that one first user, one instance. If a second request is coming for the same servlet, then second instance. Like this, it is going to create the instances. So second step is creating the servlet instances. After creation of the servlet instances, it will call the init method. Init method is where the initialization of a servlet is done. Execution part, initialization is done at the init method. So it calls the init method. This is the third step. So once the initialization is done, it goes for the call service method. So call service method is the actual method that is going to be executed by the servlet in order to serve the request. And the next, once the service method is done, it calls for the destroy method. Once the execution of the service method is done, then it will call the destroy method. So like this, servlet lifecycle has different steps. First, it loads the servlet class. It creates the servlet instance, calls the class, call init method, call the service method, and the destroy method. So destroy method is called when the execution of the servlet is done, and it has to be removed from the servlet web container part. So let us see here a scenario where in the servlet lifecycle, if multiple requests are coming for the same servlet 1 is there in the container. The servlet 1 has multiple requests. So it has the request like request 1, request 2, request 3, request 4, like this. So how this container is going to handle this, or the server is going to handle this one? So in order to handle this request, what the servlet container will do means it creates a thread. It creates a thread, and that thread name, it is saying that for request 1 it is making the thread A, for the request 2 it is making the thread 2 thread B, and for request 3 it is making the thread C. So like this, for every new request, it is going to create an instance in the form of a thread A, thread B, thread C, like this, up to the number of requests that are coming for the same servlet. So this way it is going to create the instances and handle the multiple requests for a particular servlet. So whenever a particular request is coming here, so first initialization method is going to be executed only once, because first time whenever it is loaded into the web server, first time, so init method is going to call only once, and service method is going to be executed any number of times, because as many number of requests that are coming for a particular request, that many number of times the service method is going to execute. And the destroy method is going to be execute only once, because after the service is done, whenever it is done, we need to destroy the servlet, so it is going to be execute only once. So in the life cycle of the servlet, the init method and the destroy methods are going to execute only once, and whereas the service method is going to execute any number of times, as many number of requests that are coming to the servlet. So this thread, here a thread, what is thread there? A thread is nothing but it is a lightweight process. So whenever a particular request is coming, it is going to treat like a separate process. And for that one, it is create a thread. A thread is nothing but it is a lightweight process. So whenever the service is done, it is going to send a response to the client. Web server is going to send a response to the client in the form of HTTP response. So like this servlet lifecycle works. If there is another request coming for the another servlet, so at that time what it will do, it will try to load all the 5 steps, follow the 5 steps in order to execute that particular servlets. If the same servlet is going to be executed, then it will follow only the 3 steps. The 3 steps like init method, service method, and the destroy method. So let us see that how servlet works. In the sense, if there are multiple requests are there for a same servlet, if there are same servlet is executed multiple number of times, or a new servlet is going to be executed. So for that one, we need to check with the help of this. First, a request is coming to the server. The server checks if the servlet is requested for the first time. If the first time it is requested, it is going to check that one. If it is checked first, a request is coming for the first time. If it is yes, then it does the things like load the servlet class, then initiate the servlet class, then call the init method passing the servlet config object, and call the service method passing request and response objects. So this is done when a first time a request is coming for a particular servlet. If this is not a first time, if the servlet is not going to be requested first time, it is requested second time or third time, means automatically these 2 steps are already done. So what it will do, it will execute only this third and fourth step, that is calling the initialize method and the service method. And if it is it is not the first time, if it's already, then what it will do, it will call the service method passing the request and a response object. So like this, a servlet is going to be verified whether it is coming first time or first request, or it is already the requested one, that is going to be verified. So how it works, see, first map the request with the servlet in the web.xml file, and then create request and response objects for this request, then call the public service method on the thread. Then next step is the public service method internally calls the protected service method. The protected service method calls all the service methods, whatever the service methods are there, service methods depending upon the type of request. Then the service method generates the responses and it is passed to the client. And after sending the responses, the web container deletes the request and response objects. This thread is contained in the thread pool, or deleted depends upon the server implementation. So here, what is web.xml file? So initially this web.xml file is it is called as a deployment descriptor. where we are going to write the details of the servlet that we want to execute on the browser. So how the client is going to make a request, what will be the URL pattern, and how it is going to be mapped to the servlet. The details are written inside the web.xml file. So it is called as a deployment descriptor. So we can change the URL pattern as we like. Based upon the pattern, we can access the application or a servlet, and that is initialized inside the web.xml file. So what are the service methods we expect in the servlets? So the basic service methods like do, delete service method. So if you are going to see the life cycle of a servlet, in this we have the initiate method, then service method and destroy method. In service method, these are the methods we use. So first one is, for example, say do delete. So called by the server to allow a servlet to handle the delete request. So in order to make a delete request, we need to use the do delete method. So it has this signature like HTTP servlet request. So there is request variable and HTTP servlet response variable like this. So it has this signature. In the same way, other method like do get. So this method is used to called by the server to allow a servlet to handle the get request. Similarly, do head method to handle the request. It receives an HTTP head request from the protected service method and handles the request. Similarly, we have do options called by the server to allow servlet to handle the options request. And do post method, do post service method called by the server allows a service servlet to handle the post request. Similarly, do post, do put called by the server allows a servlet to handle the put request. And similarly, a do trace called by the server to allow a servlet to handle the trace request. Like this, service methods are different. So we can change the service method depending upon the request, and we need to write that one in the service method. So these are the few service methods of servlet. Now see a small example. So we see that there are three important methods. So how do we write a servlet program? So these are the basic libraries of a servlet. So we had the servlet APIs like packages and APIs. Here two type of APIs are there. First API is javax.servlet. This is one of the API of the servlet, and another API is that import javax.servlet.http. So javax.servlet.http is another API. So these are the two APIs that are used. These are the two servlet APIs that need to be imported for the servlet program. And this is Java IO, the default Java library. And so here this servlets follows the Java technology. So Java technology contains basic class. So here a class is there, a class. So we know that a class contains two important things. One is it has the data member and member functions. So here we use the class name as the hello world, which extends HTTP servlet because it is a servlet program. And here private string, so a message is a variable, or it is a data member which is of private access specifier. And here public void init method. This is the initial method where actual execution of servlet gets executed. So in this we are initializing the data member, that is a variable. The variable name is a message, and in this we are writing some message to be displayed on the screen. So this is the first method, that is init method. So it is written in this way in the servlet program. And similarly there is another method. So this is a signature of service method. So do get, void do get. So this is the signature of the do get, that is service method of servlet, and it is written in this way where we are going to set the content type as either whether it is a HTML type or whether it is a text type. So that response. And there is another signature, that is destroy. So destroy method is going to be called. This is another signature, destroy, third signature. So all the methods, service init method, service method, and delete destroy method. So these three methods are used while writing a servlet program. So when you are going to execute this servlets program after deployment, you are going to get this message. So how to run this servlet program? So whenever the servlet program is written, it is going to be saved as .java file. So it is saved as a .java file. It is compiled. And it is going to produce you the .class file. So this .class file is going to be added in the web.xml files descriptor, deployment descriptor, which is a deployment descriptor, which contains the pattern to execute the servlet. So we can say this, the name given is hello world. So hello world is the pattern. So hello world is written in the servlet name as a hello world, and it also has the class name as a hello world, because whenever it is compiled, it is going to produce the same file name .class. So it is going to give the hello world servlet. And after this, we need to give the URL mapping. So URL mapping is done, and it is written in the web.xml file, and that mapping is nothing but your name, what you are going to give. So here by default it is given as hello world only. So when it is executed, you could see here there is a hello world pattern that is going to be typed in the URL. So in URL you are going to type as http://localhost. If it has the port number listening at 8080, followed with the folder name, if you have created any folder or directory name, followed with the servlet name. So the servlet pattern, whatever you have given in the deployment descriptor, it has to be written here. So it is here hello world. So this hello world is given and it is executed in the URL. So when it is executed, it is going to generate a output in this fashion. So it is saying that the message what is written inside the hello world, welcome to Mlritm. So that message is going to be displayed. So we are making a request through the URL saying that hello world servlet. So this web server will look after for that hello world servlet that is present inside the web container. The web container will search for this hello world, and it executes that particular servlet and sends the response to the client, and we get the response as whatever there in the message. So like this servlet program is executed, deployed and executed. So this is the reference from where I have taken this images, that is tutorialpoint.com, and hope you have understood the topic, and thank you.